good evening. It is Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. So welcome to the meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Carson City School District. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and we're going to start off with the flag salute. Trustee Walker, if you could lead us.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 is adoption of the agenda. This is for possible action.
I'll move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none in person. Do we have any remote?
No, Mr. Cassiopolo?
Thank you. Board, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 3, opportunity for the Board of Trustees to interview applicants that properly apply to fill the parent vacancy on the Carson City School District Family Life Advisory Committee. This is a for discussion only item, and we have Sheila Story and Cheryl Macy. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, President Cassiopolo and members of the board and the district office. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce each of our candidates for the Family Life Advisory Parent Volunteer position. I will say Dan Davis advertised very well, and we have 6 applicants. I think it's excellent. They all come with extremely good backgrounds, educational experience, and a lot of knowledge that could bring a lot of great opportunity to the Family Life Advisory Committee. So I'll introduce each of them individually. And then I guess you'll call them up and ask for a summary, or?
Yeah, why don't you just bring, in fact, if they're here, do we have enough seats for everybody? What we'd like to do is bring them up because we'd like to just have them do, if you would, a brief introduction about who you are. You don't have to reiterate everything, just kind of highlight who you are and why you're interested in being a part of the position. And then we do have some questions that we may or may not go through and ask. I would just remind the board, if we get to that point, we have to ask everybody the same question. So with that, yeah, if you don't mind coming up as she calls you, and then
Thank you.
we'll keep it painless.
So our first candidate is Katie Hackler. She's a registered nurse. Her current position is at Carson Medical Group as an OBGYN nurse. She has years of experience within the obstetric and gynecology area, including at the hospital. She currently has a 5th grader and a 2nd grader attending the Carson City School District. Our second candidate is Danielle Pritchett. She has a 10th grader at Carson High School. She comes with a vast experience in account managing, insurance advising, office managing, and program administration. Our third candidate is Ashley Creel. She had 2 children, a 2nd grader and a kindergartner who attend Seeliger Elementary School. She currently works for Pool Pack, and she has a wide range of experience within the human resources area. Our next candidate is David Klass. He has a 1st grader who attends Border Gray Elementary School. He is a student pastor at Common Ground Church and has a lot of experience working with youth. Our next candidate is Linda Lawler. She has a 5th grader at Fritch Elementary School and a 2nd grader, and 2 sons who've graduated from Carson High School. She has a criminal justice degree and is currently a deputy chief probation officer here in Carson City. And our next candidate is Paul Ingram. He has a 6th grader who attends Eagle Valley Middle School, a 4th grader who attends Seigler Elementary School, and he has 2 sons who are currently attending UNR. He's the head pastor, correct? Head pastor of Common Ground Church, and once again comes with a lot of experience working with youth. Is that all of them? 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's all of them. You're high. Okay, great. Okay. So I'll let Paul have my seat and you can take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Real quick, I just want to make sure we know, looks like we advertised on Parent Square and of course in the legal notices. And I apologize, I think I was told this, but where else do we advertise for this? Richard?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. There was an article that the school district wrote through Mr. Dan Davis, and that was published in the Nevada Appeal.
Okay.
I think we also had it out on our social media outlets as well.
Oh, perfect, thank
I think
you.
it was also on Carson Now. I think I remember seeing it on Carson Now as well.
Okay. No, it's good because we had some questions about where we advertise these positions and having 6 applicants. That's fantastic. So thank you very much for your interest. So what I'll do is maybe we can just start and the way they called you up is out of order from what I had. So if we can just kind of start from my right to my left and just again, a brief introduction on who you are and why you want to be on the committee, if you don't mind.
My name's Danielle Pritchett, and outside of my son being in the school, I felt it was a good way to get involved and gain some new experience and how this all works, and just being involved as a parent, found it really interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, please.
Linda Lawler, and I decided to apply for this opportunity. I had 2 boys, 20 and 21, who graduate from Carson High School, and my experience through their growth with the Carson City School District was very positive. And I have a 5th grader now who I have similar experiences, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Great, thank you. Next, please.
Have to hold it. There we go. Now I can leave it alone. Sweet. My name is Paul Ingram, and as a pastor, I just have a heart to serve the community and to make it the best community possible. And when I heard about the position, I just felt a sense that I was supposed to apply for it as part of living out that calling on my life. And so I'd love to do anything I can to serve.
Great, thank you.
My name is Dave Klass. I've been living here for about a year and a half. I have a 1st grader at Boardwick Bray. And next year I will have a kindergartner at the same school. I'm a youth pastor at Common Ground Church, and that's why I moved here, was for that position. And my whole life revolves around bettering the lives of young people in the community. And I thought this was a really awesome, tangible way to do just that.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Ashley Creel. My background is in human resources. I have a 2nd grader at Seeliger and a kindergartner at Seeliger, so just starting out our educational adventure. And I've been looking for ways to get involved in the community for a couple of years, and I recently ended another volunteer opportunity, so I had some available time, and I would love to be part of making sure that my kids get a really valuable education, and I think that this is a really important subject, and so I wanted to see if I could contribute to that in some way.
Thank you.
My name is Katie Hackler. It might say Kathleen on there. I have a 2nd grader and a 5th grader at Seeliger. I'm a nurse. I work in an OBGYN office as a patient educator. Prior to that, I worked in labor and delivery for 10 years. I was interested in this position because my children are at the age where they're starting to ask a lot of questions, and I'm having to figure out the right answers for them. And then my background as a nurse, was constantly surprised at the lack of information that the women I'm caring for had, and always trying to find ways to better help them and educate them. And I think that this position would be a good way to help the youth progress and learn that information.
Great, thank you very much. So board, we do, if you're interested, We do have some questions that we don't have to go by these, but if if you have a question, all I ask is that if we're going to ask anybody any questions, to make it fair and comply with the rules of the game, that we ask everybody the same question. So at this time, I did want to open it up to the board to see if anybody had any questions.
At this time, I just have a comment. I am so appreciative of all of your willingness to volunteer, and you all are extremely well qualified, and I'm really grateful for your willingness to do this. So I'll see if we have any other questions with it, but I really appreciate.
Thank you. Rich, did you have anything? I wasn't sure if you were going for the mic.
I'd like to echo what Laurel said. I think it's outstanding that we have 6 such qualified candidates. And I always hate to be put in this position because I'd like to bring all of you on the committee. And unfortunately, there's only one slot right now. But we're very pleased that everybody here is very well qualified. We thank you for your interest in the position. And then I guess, just so we can kick it off with questions, is everybody willing and able to spend the time that's needed? You have apparently a meeting each month, and this is a 3-year commitment. And I guess, I don't know how you want to answer that. You want to just have everybody answer it, or?
Yeah, why don't we just go one by one? Be easier for Renee to keep notes.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of the.
Oh, I'm
time-
sorry. Every time we come back to you, you have to identify your name
Oh,
again.
I apologize.
We're not a smart board. It is for the record.
This is Danielle Pritchett, and I'm fully aware of the time commitments and fully capable of fulfilling those. Since I have a teenager, it's really flexible. He doesn't need me as much anymore, so
That happens.
outside of just 8 to 5 work commitments, I'm available.
Linda Lawler, and I'm aware of the commitment as well, and I'm committed if chosen. I'm at a point in my career that I have a lot of flexibility to commit the time.
Thank you.
Paul Ingram, short answer, yes. I wouldn't apply for something that I didn't feel like I needed to make the time for. I don't need more things to do, but if chosen, this would be one of the things I would make sure happened.
David Class. Yeah, me and my wife, wherever we have lived, have always made sure to carve out a certain percentage of time to be able to volunteer for things in the community outside of our church. And so this would be my thing. So yeah, yes.
This is Ashley Creel. Yes, I have the time to dedicate. I was made aware that it was a monthly meeting and that there might be some ad hoc meetings, which I'm aware of and can pretty easily accommodate. I do work full-time, but I work and live in the community, so I can be anywhere in the community pretty quickly. So yes, I am available and willing to serve.
Thank you.
Katie Hackler, and yes, I am aware, and I would be happy to fulfill that commitment.
Thank you. Mike?
So I guess I have a question. Obviously, this is a committee that tackles some controversial issues. And so looking at the family life policy and the curriculum that we want to provide for our students, what's the most important components of a program like this, in your opinion?
Why don't we start, Daniel? We keep picking on you first, so let's start on the other side and work our way. Mix it up a little bit.
So,
And Katie, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Just, again, we need your name first.
okay. Katie Hackler.
Thanks.
And I haven't been involved in a committee with this topic before. However, I am involved in reproductive health and pregnancy. I do a lot of prenatal education. And what's always important to me is presenting and giving patients information about different sides and how to be healthy and how to make a decision for themselves. I think in this type of situation with children, it's important to talk about safety and I guess without getting into it too much, but just make sure that they're aware of all sides of it so that they can make a decision for themselves or have that information for themselves and something that they can go home and talk with their parents about. Because coming from a religious family that didn't talk about anything, going into this field and having my own life experiences, there's a big difference as far as what information I was given. And I would just want to make sure that everyone has the information that they can talk with their families about.
Ashley Creel. I am going to reiterate a lot of what you just said, but I do agree that it's really important for our kids to know the facts about their bodies and all of the things that go into this program. I definitely know that myself and people I've grown up with have had holes in our education in some areas, which I'm hopeful that my kids will not have the same holes. And so I think that making sure that we're keeping up with any kind of new information that's coming out, addressing any kind of new issues that come up with social media, whatever, the new technology that presents challenges for kids in this area and maybe presents inaccurate information. I think it's really important to have a super strong curriculum that can present the facts in a way that they understand, doesn't shy away from those kinds of topics, and does provide an opportunity for them to ask questions, not only at school, but also at home with their parents, and know how to talk about those things because it can be very difficult.
David Class. Yeah, as being in youth ministry for almost 20 years, one of the things that hasn't changed at all is that most parents feel very overwhelmed by having these talks with their kids. They feel underprepared. And so when we do talks like this in youth ministry, most of the parents are pretty psyched about it. They're really excited that it's going to be talked about. And so, you know, I agree with everything they said too, but I think also is just a curriculum that can empower the parents to feel like they're a big part of the sex education of their children.
I think all 4 of these people are great candidates. All 5 of these people. Sorry, I can't even count. I haven't even heard their answers yet, but I would just reiterate everything they've said. I think a curriculum that teaches...
State your name,
Oh, sorry, Paul Ingram. Yeah. A curriculum that teaches facts and not opinions, allows the information to be given in a way that creates conversation that can happen in the home. Also understanding, though, that some homes will never be a healthy place for that conversation. I believe that, you know, you might see pastor next to my name, and that might concern you, that I would have a certain agenda. And while my life is informed by my faith and by Scripture, I believe the church has done a large disservice by keeping it a taboo subject. And I think it's time for us to really teach facts and not try to teach morality one way or the other. And I want to be part of making that change.
Linda Lawler, and I think, you know, I might reiterate a lot of what's already been said, but there are a few topics that I think need to be addressed. One is boundaries. A lot of kids don't understand what the boundaries are and make decisions that affect their whole life. I've spent 25 years working with high-risk youth, and boundaries is usually one of the factors that gets them in trouble with regards to this subject. And I think when I worked in detention with these youth, I created facilitated a group to teach these youth, and I was very shocked the information that they lacked on this subject. So I think that needs to be addressed, as well as the facts and having age-appropriate lesson plans for the age group that we're dealing with.
Danielle Pritchett. All of these answers were absolutely fantastic. I'm feeling a little inadequate at the moment. But to kind of go along with what everyone else has stated, I think boundaries absolutely is probably one of the biggest subjects that kids need to be aware of these days, especially in the context of consent. I'm thinking there needs to be more education in that regards, and presenting, accurate factual information and trying to keep it, to the point where they understand it and value the information that they're getting instead of just being taught something, making it more relatable for them so that they don't just brush it off as another class that someone's trying to just push on them.
Thank you. Lupe?
So, as you know, the school district has almost 50% of minority students. Can you please tell us about your experience working with minority communities, particularly Latinos?
Danielle Pritchett. I work with a variety of ethnicities in my job as an insurance agent. Basically, I'm working with the general public on a daily basis. And from an educational perspective, I think I'm not as experienced as I'm sure some of these others would be from a children's standpoint, but I'm open and willing to learn and take on any roles or responsibilities that I would need to be able to learn and provide to all children, regardless.
Linda Lawler, and I'm bilingual. I am half Hispanic. I may not look like it, but I am. I worked in San Diego, which has a large minority population, especially the high-risk youth. There's a lot of minorities that we work with. And so I have experience here in Carson. We have a huge Hispanic population, which I'm very familiar with, and work with them every day. So I've had lots of training on cultural diversities and working with minorities, and that absolutely is very important to know the population that you're working with and tailor the needs of that population.
Paul Ingram. I have spent a lot of time in places where the Latino population is a large percentage. I grew up in Texas, spent a lot of time doing mission work just across the border. Once a year, we would go and build a house for a family in one of the border communities. So I speak a little bit of Spanish, certainly not bilingual. I would be exposed quickly, but also spent a lot of time in Tucson, Arizona, and then, of course, here for 5 years. So not a lot of firsthand one-on-one experience in any way dealing with at-risk kids or anything like that, but a lot of life experience in communities where Latinos are a large percentage.
David Class. I grew up most of my life on the south side of Chicago, where people who look like me were the minority. And that's where I started my whole life in community service and ministry. And so I have people who are part of my family, best friends, lifelong best friends who are all minorities in our country. But yeah, I have a lot of experience working with minorities within the ministry and community service context, but not so much in this specific context. But I've enjoyed every minute of the work I have done with those groups.
Ashley Creel. I suppose I'll be coming at it from a little bit different angle, having an HR background. I have not worked a lot with youth, but I've definitely worked with a wide variety of employee populations, and one of the hottest topics now is diversity and inclusion. And so it's definitely something that I've spent a lot of time with in the last couple of years, especially, and with the new legislation that has passed, which requires certain trainings for certain groups of employees regarding this topic. So from what I've learned, diving into that the last couple of years, I think one of the most important things is to meet people where they're at and recognize that they're coming to the subject with a whole different perspective than other people that are maybe more privileged or have a different exposure to this kind of topic, or have a more open home or don't have a more open home. So just meeting someone where they're at to make sure that they're actually getting that education. From an employee perspective, we do that a lot with our trainings. You have to make sure that you're reaching everybody, and a lot of people come to those trainings with no education, or maybe education that you have to maybe empty the cup and refill it with the correct things, especially if they've developed bad habits in regards to personal boundaries, harassment and discrimination, those kinds of things. So, but mostly I would say that for that kind of population, I think it's really important to recognize that, yeah, they come to the table with a whole different world. And I'm really excited to see that you guys are addressing that and taking that into account.
Katie Hackler. So I work in the community, and I would say a large percentage of patients I work with are Hispanic or of other cultural backgrounds. Starting from nursing school on, it's kind of been ingrained to look at cultural differences and how different cultures might see different subjects, from eating hot foods or cold foods to that to whether you get an epidural or not. And I think that a lot of the time the parents or the older population may be set in their way in their culture and have a different understanding than maybe their children do. So I think that it's important to give the children that information, but in a respectful way of their culture, and in a way that they can talk with their family about it.
Thank you. We have any other questions on the board? Seeing none? Oh, Laurel.
Just a question for Sheila. How many members, again, just refresh us for the record, how many members do we have on the committee, and what's the makeup of the committee currently? Because this is the one parent position that.
Is this on? There we go. Okay, Sheila Story for the record. To answer your question, there are 10 positions on the board. We currently have a parent position.
What's the makeup of the board? Like, we have teachers. I remember the
Okay.
last time we had a couple applicants, there was only that, at that time, we didn't have any males
Okay.
serving on the.
So currently, the 4 parent members do not currently work for the Carson City School District. The teacher on the board does work for the Carson City School District. The counselor works for the Carson City School District. The nurse works for the Carson City School District, and our religious member works for the Carson City School District. And currently, there are 4 parents who do not work for the Carson City School District. The board is made up of all female except for 1 male who is a parent member.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much. Item 3 is where we're going to get into, item 4 is where we're going to get into the action item of this agenda. So you're welcome to go back to your seats if you want. Okay, so item 4 is discussion and possible action to select a parent representative to serve a 3-year term, December 2021 to December 2024, on the Carson City School District Family Life Advisory Committee. From the applicants interviewed in item 3 referenced above, this is for possible action. So I guess first off, before we start the vote, I want to thank everybody for your interest in the position. And I think it's important to let everybody know that if you're not selected, and this doesn't go to you, this goes for anybody, anybody's allowed to attend these meetings. So if you have an interest and you're not selected, certainly anybody's welcome to come and listen. You're just not a voting member of the committee. But again, thank you. I really appreciate your interest, and I think we have 6 interesting and qualified candidates. Sheila, before we get into the board, do you have anything you want to add?
Thank you, President Cassiopo. Sheila Story for the record. I will say that it is a 3-year term, and we do have 2 parent positions coming available at the end of this school year. We have 2 parents who are done as of May 2022. So we'll need 2 more parents next year also.
Okay. So what I thought we'd do is bring it to the board, certainly for any discussion first, and then probably the best way to do this is I'll just kind of take roll. We'll go down the list and we'll see who gets the most votes. But does anybody have any discussion they want to add before we get to that? Laurel?
Just something that I should disclose. Mr. Ingram and his son and my son are good friends and have run cross country together 4 years of high school. So I don't have any financial interest, but I do know him personally. So I should disclose that.
Okay. That's good to bring up. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to start with Mike, Trustee Walker.
So are we discussing the pros and cons of, or are we just voting? I'm not sure what you're wanting.
I think if we'd like to go through the pros and cons, I'm okay with that. Otherwise, if you're ready to if you want to discuss that and cast your vote at the same time, you can do that, or we can run the gamut and then go back for the vote.
Well, I think all of the candidates had great answers. I think there's 2 things that kind of stand out for me. I really like the perspective of healthcare worker, and then I also know Linda works really closely with youth in our community, so she has that background knowledge of not just the need in the community, but kind of the personalities of the kids in the schools. And so I think that's a strength. If I had to pick just one, my vote would be for Linda at this point.
Okay.
Actually, Linda was.
Don. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
I think everybody's a really good candidate. Linda, actually, I think stood out to me with the juvenile services background, with her work with the high-risk youth. Linda would be my vote.
Okay. Lupe.
I also vote for Linda. I think it is important to bring someone that has knowledge on how to address critical issues that impact our communities. Plus, she definitely has extensive experience working with youth. So I definitely go. My vote is for Linda.
Thank you. Laurel.
I agree. I think Linda brings a perspective that we don't have on the board with her background and experience with those, on the committee, not on the board, with those youth. I do still worry about us, and it's not anything against it, but I also want to make sure that we have male perspectives in that, because as a mother of boys, they they learn things a little differently sometimes, and I think that's important. So I also I do like Mr. Ingram Paul because I've seen him as a supportive parent who has a good relationship with students. So I could go either way.
Okay. Rich?
It's very, very tough. I think having another male on the committee would be good. Paul, I think you'd be an excellent candidate. Also, I'm kind of favoring Katie because of her background. So right now, I think I would go for the male perspective with Paul.
Okay. Stacy, I saw you come in the back room there. I know you weren't here for this discussion item, but if you've gone through the packet and the resumes and you have a thought and want to cast a vote on this. And we'll need you to, yeah, sit down. No, actually, I think we have we have 4 votes for Linda, 2 votes for Paul. I'll just to close the loop, again, I know it's kind of a canned answer, if you will, but truly everybody, I think, brings a certain perspective to the board. And I like all the perspectives I heard. I read through all the resumes, and I really appreciate everybody's experience and interest. If I was casting the first vote, my vote was going to be for Katie, so I'm going to stick with that. But with all the votes in, again, we have 1 vote for Katie, 2 votes for Mr. Ingram, and 4 votes for Linda. So, sorry, I counted you twice because you didn't narrow it down to 1. Well, we haven't voted yet. I'm just, Would you like to lean one way or the other?
Sorry, I had my mic off there. Again, I just want you guys to come back. When we have 2 openings, there's so much qualified talent here. And I really am grateful for your willingness to serve and to be part of that. So I don't know, do I have to decide or just can someone make a motion and then I can
Well,
decide?
we have, I'll tell you right now, we have 4 votes for Linda. And if somebody wants to make a motion based on that, but you can make your own motion.
Make a motion.
Dawn?
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve Linda Lawler as the parent representative to serve on the Carson City School District Family Life Advisory Committee for a 3-year term, December 2021 to December 2024.
Second.
Okay, a motion by trustee Kareen, second by trustee Ramirez. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any in-person public comment on this? Seeing none, any remote public comment, Renee?
Let me refresh Mr. Cassiopo 1 moment, please. No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 6 ayes, 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. So with that, Linda, there you are. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And Sheila, thank you for introducing everybody. And we look forward to having you on the committee. And again, the rest of you and anybody else who's interested, we would love your, if you have the time, your ability to come and sit on some meetings. And as future positions unveil themselves, if you're still interested, we'd love to consider having you. So thank you very much.
And yeah, please don't consider this a rejection because you guys are some of the best we've seen. So thank you very much.
Okay, item 5, we're going to move on to the superintendent's report. This is for information only. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, President Cassiopo, members of the board and community. Welcome this evening. As most of you know, today was a delayed start to the school day due to inclement weather. I would like to just say a grateful thank you to all of our staff and community members for your flexibility and support in operating under these tricky conditions. Our support staff and certified staff, administrators, everybody really came together under challenging conditions, and we appreciate everyone's work in getting the schools ready this morning. Also like to announce that tomorrow is Holiday with a Hero, and as you know, these local heroes, which are members of our police, firefighters, and law enforcement community in general, will be paired up with students who are in need, and they'll have an opportunity to shop for family members and also for themselves. So this is really a nice event that is put forward by the Holiday with a Hero organization, and we're happy to be partners with them as we use our staff members to identify those students who will be taking part in this event. I would also like to let the trustees and the community know that later this week, Carson High School and Pioneer High School will have an early release day, and that occurs on Thursday. And then all schools will have an early release day on December 17th, which is Friday. I would also like to encourage any members of the community who might be listening to consider working for the district. We have a variety of positions that are available and vacant, and we will be certainly taking applications for part-time and full-time positions through the Christmas break. So it'd be a great time for you to put your name in if you're interested in working for the district. We offer competitive pay and certainly excellent benefits. Finally, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the community, our Christmas break will be December 20th, 2021 through January 3rd, 2022. And so I'd just like to wish you all happy holidays, since we won't have another meeting before the end of the year, and the same to all of our staff members and community members. And that's my report.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Board, any questions for Superintendent Stokes? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to board reports, board member comments. This is for information only. We don't have a Carson High School representative here in the hallway, do we? So I don't think we do, but if they show up, we'll get them in. How about a NASB report?
I have nothing if you don't, Laurel.
There's an opening on the Region 3 NIAA committee, but that doesn't, we're Region 2, so that's what they're setting out, and we don't have any updates other than that at this time.
Excuse me. Got that on speaker. Okay, let's do, I'll do my Pioneer Academy activities announcement when it comes my turn, but why don't we start with general board announcements, Mike?
So just a couple things from Mark Twain. So they wanted to thank families for participating in their annual La Posada and lighting up of the school ceremonies that they've experienced or participated in last week. So thank you for that participation. And then they just wanted us to know they're a little ahead of the curve, and they mostly have all of their students map tested before the winter break. So that's awesome. And she wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday. She'll see you all January 4th.
Great. Thank you. Stacy?
We had a joint meeting with the Parks and Rec and Open Space last Tuesday. Made great inroads on getting more uniformed rules of leashes on dogs and parks that the dogs and other animals can be in. Great discussion. And then there was the homestead for the holidays out at Silver Saddle Ranch this weekend, which was well received.
Okay, thank you. Don?
All right. I have a bunch of stuff tonight. I wanted to start with, reporting on the Joint Advisory Committee, which I've been part of. We had an initial meeting November 18th, and more recently, last week, we had our second meeting December 8th. And for those, the Joint Advisory Committee is a standing committee which provides a forum for discussion, study, and recommendations to appropriate administration or possibly the school board of those issues that serve the good of the district, the staff, and the goals of delivering quality education. That's really the definition of what we're going to try to do on the Joint Advisory Committee, or what we are going to do. The committee elected a chairperson, Carson High School teacher Thomas Chandler will be our committee chairman. And the committee is made up of the superintendent, the district financial officer, a school board member, and representatives from all three labor groups: administrators, classified, and certified. From many topics of discussion that we brought up at the first meeting, the committee at the second meeting decided to start with a focus for this year on initiative alignments in the district and the possibility of streamlining some of these efforts. Our next meeting will be on February 9th. Also from Dr. Lee Conley, Eagle Valley Middle School. He has a few things to say. Mrs. Palmer, the CLS teacher, and I had to look that up, a collaborative learning space teacher, took her students on a field trip to shop for an angel tree activity. The kids really appreciated it, and it was a fantastic and positive experience for students and staff. This week is Spirit Week at Eagle Valley with assorted dress-up opportunities for kids, December 13th through the 17th this week. Very successful band and choir concert on last Thursday, December 9th. Great job, Mr. Brill, our music teacher. Kimberly Tucker, STEM teacher, received a $4,000 Rotary Award. She has already purchased numerous robotic kits for the STEM program and the robotics club. Briel Karen, a sixth grader, organized a fundraiser for Wigs for Kids, which raised $859. Students paid to wear hoodies, hats, and non-standard student attire. And then lastly, the leadership students helped decorate the teachers' doors and rooms to spread holiday cheer this week. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Lupe?
So from Sealiger Elementary School, they started the winter maps testing last week, and they're continuing on this week. Some of their students are going to go shop with the Holiday with the Hero tomorrow. And this is the last week for the fall season where they're going to have the tutoring called Pirate Club. They will resume back in January. The Sealiger Standard Student Attire Parents Survey closes this coming Thursday, so the 16th, so people can still complete them. Carols from Carson High School will be attending the Sealiger Elementary School on Thursday to spread the festive spirit. And then on Friday, students are dismissed at 2 o'clock for early release day. That is from Sealiger. And then from Empire, Mrs. Squires had a couple of parent engagement events. They had 70 families participate in the annual piñata contest. And then they also had 250 people who attended the outdoor Santa event. And even though it was a cold day, they managed to keep them warm with hot chocolate and they served Mexican bread. So a couple of very successful family engagement events at Empire Elementary School. That concludes my report.
Great. Thank you. Laurel?
Okay. For Fremont Elementary School, Dr. Ward, said that they had a wonderful Santa store and their students were able to buy gifts for their parents and siblings. And she and Mr. Brown over at Fridge would want to wish all of their families a happy holiday season and wish everyone the best.
Thank you. Rich?
Yeah, I have some stuff from Carson Middle School and Boardwalk Bray, but before I do that, I'm going to just repeat what people have already said. Wish everybody a Merry Christmas since this is our last board meeting for this year. All our students, our staff, community members, just hope everyone has a good holiday season. Merry Christmas. And then from Carson Middle School, they're continuing with their improvement team meetings, and they will have one on Tuesday, January 25th, from 2:45 p.m. to 4 p.m. Parents and students focus groups will be invited to this event to provide input on the CMS School Improvement Plan. So you may want to put that on your calendar if you want to attend that. And Principal Sadler would also like to congratulate the CMS music students on their successful performances concerts. I was able to attend the concert and musical theater program. I think it was last Thursday night. A lot of people from the community attended, a lot of parents, kids, which I was glad to see, such a great turnout. And I got to tell you, the kids did a marvelous job. Wonderful. They sounded good, and I was just really happy to be able to attend that event. And Miss Valley and Miss Page, I'd like to give them credit. They worked very hard putting this program on, and they did a wonderful job. And Mr. Sadler would also like to extend his congratulations to the boys basketball team and the coaches for their successful season. Then for Boardwalk Bray, last, I think it was Friday, they had their fourth grade students and their first grade students at separate times go down to the governor's mansion and perform songs for the public. And it was during the food drive, and each kid brought some food down, dropped it off. Channel 2 News was there, a great event. The fourth graders were there first, I think at 9 o'clock in the morning, something like that, 9 or 10. And they sang 10 songs, 10 Christmas songs, and they sounded really, really good. The first graders were a little bit later in the day, and unfortunately, I was not able to make that performance, but they sang 2 songs that they'd rehearsed, and my understanding is that they did a very good job on that also. So I'd like to thank Mr. Catron, who is the music teacher there, for taking the fourth graders and teaching them 10 songs. I mean, I don't know, that's a lot of songs to learn. So he continues to do a great job with the music students there. So I just wanted to give him some kudos for that. Let me see if I got anything else. Tomorrow evening at Boardwalk at 6:45, their choir is going to have their concert. So if anybody would like to attend that, it, like I said, starts at 6:45. Then on Friday, they're celebrating the Polar Express Day. They're going to listen to the story, and then the students are going to get to watch the movie. And it's also their pajama day. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I need to incorporate pajama day into my work. I like that. Should show up in sweats every day. I'll give a quick announcement for Pioneer. Pioneer Academy hosted a winter dance last Friday. As with most everything they do, it was a success and well attended, and I'm happy they had a chance to do that. Semester 1 finals are currently in session this week on campus for all secondary Pioneer Academy students. The Pioneer ski and volleyball teams are under development. Volleyball meets weekly after school, and the roller skating club meets weekly after school as well. 2 of the Pioneer speech and debate team members competed at Damani Ranch High School this past weekend. So that concludes their announcements, but they always have a lot of stuff going on, and this is just a a snapshot of what's going on there. So my hat's off to the Pioneer Academy staff and Principal Zona. I think they're doing a real good job over there. Wanted to let everybody know that I had a chance to attend the very tail end of the Bordewick staff Christmas party. And it was just nice to see everybody outside of school just enjoying each other's company, them and their significant others. The Sunshine Committee there sets all that up, sponsors the bulk of that, and then staff, I believe, chips in a little bit of money. But it really was just a nice opportunity for everybody to relax, unwind, and just have a good time with each other. So it was nice to see that. I had a chance last week. I get invited every year by Mr. Lopsinger to speak at the 2 engineering classes he teaches at the high school. And so this year I went into the year 3 classes. And these are students that are in their 3rd year of engineering. They got to show me some of the projects they're working on. And it's always interesting to see what they're doing. Being an engineer, I like to see that. Although every year I think these kids more and more know so much more than I did and still do. So, but anyway, I get a chance to talk to them about what it takes to become an engineer, what they should be trying to do in high school, what college is like, what they can expect, remind them about scholarships and just a career in engineering. And so it always seems to be well received. The kids are always very respectful. They're paying attention and they ask a lot of questions. So I enjoy that quite a bit. And then just want to make a plug to anybody thinking about going to college or to trade schools to not to forget to go on the Carson High School and the Pioneer, I believe, websites and just take a look at the scholarships that are available for everybody. I had one student tell me during the engineering class speech that he's only applied for one scholarship, but it was only a $400 scholarship. And so I asked him how long it took him to apply, and he said it took him a little under an hour. And I said, well, for what it's worth, myself and most people I know don't make $400 an hour. So even a $400 scholarship is time well spent. So just to put that in perspective, there's a great deal of scholarships and they're all worth going after. Anyway, that is it for me. Do we have any association reports tonight? None? Okay, item 7 was association reports. We don't have any, so we'll move on to item 8, public comment. And as always, we ask for everybody to come up, state their name into the microphone. Everybody has up to 3 minutes, and we just ask that you don't just repeat comments that were ahead of you. And I think everybody kind of knows the drill on public comments, so why don't we open it up? And we'll start off with in-person public comments. I did not receive any speaker sign-in sheets, and that's okay, so I'll just ask for, if you want to come up, we'll just take it one at a time. Joy?
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Merry Christmas to you all. You say critical race theory is not being taught in our schools. Instead, you say that equity, fairness, social justice, diversity, and inclusion are being taught. As I have said before, these terms are used in Marxist ideology to capture the hearts and minds of the people. But the truth is, Marxism, communism, socialism, progressivism, liberalism, leftists are all the same thing. It is a belief that big government controlled by the few over the many is the best form of government. And the fact that the representative form of government is not the best. I believe critical race theory is being pushed in our schools through the literature and social science materials our children are directed to read. I believe most, not all, are used to demonize whites and is working to undermine our culture, society, moral and religious values, and to destroy the one male, one female family unit. I recently went to the Carson High School website and to their library to see what was being promoted. And I went to the biography section. And there is a group of, it's called the Gay and Lesbian Series. And I don't know how many books are in this series, but the biographies were that were listed was Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official in the U.S., Ellen DeGeneres, Allen Ginsberg, Sappho, which was a lesbian in early Greek history, and others. There were also 3 books by about Barack Hussein Obama, 3 books on Michelle Obama, a book on Hillary Clinton, Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, Kamala Harris, Oprah, and Eleanor Roosevelt. There was even a book on Che Guevara, who was a Cuban Argentinian Marxist revolutionary, physician, author, guerrilla fighter, diplomat, and military theorist. He has become regarded as a martyr, but he was a mass murderer.
Great. Thank you, Joy.
I will continue this later.
Who would like to speak next?
Hi, my name is Jessie Tingle. I have 3 letters from my kids. The first one is from my 6-year-old. She's the youngest. It reads, I can't breathe, so I don't want to wear the mask. I can't see my friends' smiles. When you cough, it goes through your mask. I do not even know what my teacher's face looks like, and that makes me sad. Second one is from my son, and he's 10. It says, Dear school board members, I have reasons why I don't like the mask. The first reason is it is hard to breathe, and when I take a breath out, the air is hot and it goes into my eyes, and it hurts very bad. The second reason is I have been getting really bad headaches. Excuse me. I did not have headaches during 3rd grade. Now I am in 5th grade, and I have been having headaches when we first started wearing masks in 4th grade. My third reason is it is kind of a distraction. The masks poke into my eyes, and it makes it hard to see what my teacher is writing. My final reason is that the COVID-19 particles are smaller than smoke particles, and if smoke particles fit through your mask, then COVID-19 particles can fit through your mask as well. Pretty smart for a 10-year-old. Thank you for listening to my letter. Third one is from my daughter. She's 13. Dear members of the school board, I believe that students shouldn't have to wear masks at school. They make it very hard to breathe. I'm constantly worrying about forgetting my mask in the mornings. Teachers and staff members are always telling me to wear or pull up my mask when I can't breathe. I have to wear my mask during PE. So when I'm running, it makes it very difficult to breathe, which causes me to cough. I'm very tired of breathing in the same oxygen. It causes headaches and makes it very difficult to focus on my work. I can't tell if my friends or teachers are smiling at me. Whenever they have their masks down, it looks like a whole new person. I would definitely recommend removing this mask mandate. My children are suffering. They're suffering every single day. This was supposed to be 2 weeks, and it's turned into 15. And if somebody can explain to me how in 15 weeks the numbers haven't gone down while children are wearing masks, can somebody explain to me the logic in that? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm frustrated, and quite frankly, I'm more than frustrated. I'm getting a little bit pissed. Excuse my language, but I'm tired of seeing them, lose it when they can't find a mask before school. I'm tired of hearing that they have headaches when they get home from school. It's a choice for our district, and you guys are making the wrong one, and I really think you need to make it optional for students. That's the only way this is going to get better.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. Who would like to speak next?
Jason Tingle, father of 4 in the Carson City School District. Here I have the damning study done by JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, the people who wrote the initial masking policies using science. The editor of that retracted article stated the reason it was pulled was a political decision out of his hands and believes it's harming our children. It was good enough for masking adults, and the CDC used that study, but when he wrote against it and against the mask and the bad effects on children, they chose to ignore it. Why is that? I have that study right here. You're more than welcome to see this retracted study. The governor's mandate is just that, a mandate, not law. They are not the enforcement branch, and they have verified they are not going after school districts. The governor's mandate leaves it to districts with less than 100,000 population. Nevada Department of Education states it's up to the school board and superintendent for guidance. OSHA has no jurisdiction on the students, only teachers. The students are not employees. This has all been verified. And then on a phone call, November 16th, the health department, state and local, both verified they have not issued such orders or guidance, except we may follow the CDC guideline if the district so chooses it. By the way, according to the CDC guideline, we are not even following any of it because it's right here. You can see it. We are not following that. All kids are supposed to be sent home, masked or not, if they have contact. Mr. Stokes, by the way, we have very different numbers, and I would be glad to give you what I have. I have been more than patient, and so have a lot of other parents. My patience has officially ran out. I've provided information from JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, to the CDC itself, and it seems to fall on deaf ears. My children are now suffering physically, with physical complications, and who knows what kind of psychological damage. I can get him and all my other children a medical exemption, but what about the other children? This is my community, and within that community lies the future. It starts with these very children we are speaking of. I would lay my life down for them. Would you do the same? If the answer is no, then you have no business being up on this board at all. If the right decision is not made, I will be forced to take action, and it starts with a notice of intent to recall. Yes, I know the process. And for some of you up there who don't know who I am, you might want to ask other members. I have extremely close ties to this community. I have kept all these parents' anger over the mask to a minimum, and I'm hoping all of you make the right decision. This will happen no more. I won't hold them back anymore. Our children's health is being put on the line. With that said, I will start by coming after your seats. If you don't believe me and you want to test that, then so be it. I'm game. I've been more than patient and more than kind. This ends tonight. And I'm sure this will put me on the infamous FBI Most Wanted list, Parent Edition, but I will remain silent no more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak next?
Is it on? All right, Miles Humphreys for the record. Kind of dovetailing what he said, he's spot on. Parents are mad. The community is done with it. And I'd appreciate it if you guys want to show the utmost leadership and keep your mask on at all times. It doesn't matter if you're talking or not, because our kids have to suffer through it all day long, every day, 5 days a week. So you guys can show the utmost leadership and be, you know, have your difficulties speaking and not being understood and everything else. So if you guys want to show true leaderships, it's on the whole entire time and everybody's presence, just like the kids have to do. And the teachers are mad, the kids are mad, and the school staff is mad. Hence the reason why we're having a hard time even getting people to be employed. But if you go on to the Oxford study on masks with children, it says that there's a 25% decline for education with the children. And then when you just Google that little thing, it says there's all kinds of other things that are dovetail just by Googling that. Effectiveness of masks and respirators. Children should not be forced to wear masks due to CO2. Mask, children, and COVID-19. Oxford scientists slam Facebook for censorship over the mask. Do face masks work? Here are 49 scientific studies that says differently. wearing a mask can expose children to dangerous levels of, yeah, and it just goes on and on and on. So we're only one of 6 states that are actually even masked, period. And it's all political theater. So the only reason for doing it is you guys are either politically driven, which is obvious for some of you. There's self-interest of bettering yourself in politics. You're under some psychological hypnosis from media and everything else of misinformation, which is obvious, or you're just plain evil. But any way you slice it, if you guys are doing any of that for those particular reasons, you shouldn't be on this board at all. And you guys need to remove yourselves and let people get up here who are going to stand for the children, who are going to be leaders for the children, and take on the tough task of putting the political, you know what, to bed. So, it's just common sense needs to come into play because our community needs to make sure that these kids have as close to normal learning experiences in what they had in the past. So that way they can be better. And we are way down there. So the masks need to come off. And if you feel that it needs to come on, let the parents be in charge and let the parents mask their kids. The parents who want to let their kids breathe freely, you better let them do so.
Thank you, Miles. Next person interested in speaking? Karen? Oh, sorry, Karen, can you check your mic?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I saw can you start that over, please?
Yeah, we'll start you over.
This is 3 minutes.
Yep, you got 3 minutes.
Dr. Robert Malone said, I am speaking to you as a parent, grandparent, physician, and science. I stand by my statement with a career dedicated to vaccine research and development. I'm vaccinated for COVID, and I'm generally pro-vaccination. I have devoted my entire career to developing safe and effective ways to prevent and treat infectious diseases. I would like you to know that before you inject your child, a decision that is irreversible, I want you to know scientific facts about this genetic vaccine, which is based on the mRNA vaccine technology that I created. There are the 3 issues parents need to understand. The first is that a viral gene will be injected into your child's cells. The gene forces your child's body to make spike proteins. These proteins often cause permanent damage in children's critical organs, including their brain and nervous system, their heart and blood vessels, their reproductive system. And this vaccine can trigger fundamental changes to their immune system. The most alarming point about this is that once these damages have occurred, they are irreparable. You can't fix the lesions in their brain. You can't repair the heart tissue scarring. You can't repair a genetically reset immune system. This vaccine can cause reproductive damage that could affect future generations of your family. The second thing you need to know about this is the fact that this novel technology has not been adequately tested. We need at least 5 years of testing/research before we can really understand the risks. Harms and risks from new medicines often become revealed many years later. Ask yourself if you want your own child to be part of the most radical medical experiment in history. One final point, the reason they're giving you to vaccinate your child is a lie. Your children represent no danger to parents and grandparents. It's actually the opposite. In summary, there is no benefit for your children or your family to be vaccinating your children against a small risk of the virus, given the known health risks of the vaccine that, as a parent, you and your children may have to live with the rest of your lives.
Thank you, Karen.
I would like to say Merry Christmas to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Provide public comment in person? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. In-person public comment, and see if we have any remote. Renee?
Mr. Cassiopo, I have no emailed public comment.
Okay, thank you. And just, Miles, just to let you know, I appreciate your comments. The reason why I'm pulling my mask off when I speak is there were some people that came to our meetings, and they were people who weren't wearing masks, and they said it was very difficult to hear us. And they asked if we would remove the masks if we want to while we're speaking.
Same challenge for the kiddos in the school district all day long.
I understand. No, I understand.
Just show leadership, please. But thank you for the explanation.
Okay, so we're good. Public comment is closed. Thank you, everybody, and we're going to move on to item 9. Discussion on possible action to approve a resolution to change the boundaries of the Carson City School District trustee election areas or change the manner in which trustees are elected in order to comply with NRS 386.205. This is for possible action. And with us, I believe we have Aubrey Roulette, sorry if I mispronounced the names, Miguel Camacho Reyes, and Tyler Jesse.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Can you check your microphone too? If the green light on the base of it should be illuminated.
It's on. I'll just speak louder. Thank you. My name is Aubrey Roulette. I'm the clerk recorder for the record. And with me today, I do have Miguel Camacho, my chief deputy clerk, as well as Tyler Jesse from our GIS. He's our asset manager for Carson City. We wanted to just briefly go through what the proposed changes are for the school district trustee map. And I did want to take a minute to thank our redistricting team. Without Jesse's team, Marvin James, Kelly Norman, our consulting group, this would have been a very daunting task for just the clerk. There was a lot of information to try to digest and figure out. And we also had a lot of help from the Carson City District Attorney's Office in helping us with the process. So I just wanted to give them the accolades on the record. From 2010
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Richard, I'm sorry. Are all these the same map? There's 3 different maps. Okay, I just thought if they were the same, we'd orient one towards the public. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So yes, in front of you, you have 3 different maps. We have the current school board trustee map. We have the proposed school board trustee map, as well as the combined, which is an overlay of the 2. It is difficult to see from that far, so we do have some zoom in slides that we can show you as we go through where the affected areas are. Again, from 2010 to 2020, the population increase was very minimal, of a 3,365 increase. And that is based on the 2020 federal census data. The redistricting project's goal was to make adjustments based on population variances between the districts. So we were successful to find that balance with a difference of 43 people between the largest district, which is District 1, and the smallest district, which is District 4. We tried to do it to where it was the least minimal effect on the county, the city. And so that is why we'll show you there's a very few amount of areas that were affected by this redistricting process. This slide demonstrates that we have continued the population equality among the districts. The blue columns would be the 2010 population spread, and the orange columns show the 2020 population spread. So we maintain that equal population among all 7 districts within this redistricting project. So District 1 through District 7, the average was about 450 approximately that in each district gained. So it really was very minimal. All of the current school trustees remain seated in their elected elected districts. We didn't make any changes that would have moved you out of where you're elected for. At this point, we can bring up the individual snippets that show you where the actual changes will be effective, because it is hard to see on that combined map. And I believe we did provide electronic versions of these maps ahead of the meeting. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to our office. But we'll get those pulled up for you and we can show you. They didn't. Okay, they're not on. So the snippets did not make it to the PowerPoint presentation. Do you want me to walk through? I believe they were provided in your packet though, so you've got them. Okay. So we tried to highlight, there's a red highlighted border that shows where the current district borders are. And then you'll see that there may be a district that moved into that border. It is hard to explain it as I'm sitting here, and I apologize for that. But those snippets will show the areas where that border existed and then where the district changes overlaid into that district. And feel free to ask me any questions. This one is a little bit harder to explain than it is.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm just looking at this first one, and just for explanation, I see the red border go, this is the first one that includes West King Street and that end of town there. So the border goes along King Street and then comes down Annapolis and runs that way to Elm Street. Does the purple spreading past the border mean that the new proposed district is going to go beyond that to where the purple is?
Tyler Jesse, Public Works. Yes, that's the encroachment.
Okay.
So that red line, you're correct, is where the 2010 was, and then the encroachment past that in the purple is the new zone.
Okay.
And then the same is true for the yellow zone.
Okay, so the yellow zone used to end here and now
Correct.
is going up further here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. We did want to keep it very short and sweet. We're welcome to any questions, but that is the presentation. I did want to just address that the proposed map does meet the requirements set forth in the Constitution of the United States of Nevada and the Nevada Revised Statutes. They are single-member districts. They are formed within one assembly district, which is our assembly district number 40, and they have nearly equal populations as far as practicable. So they do meet all those requirements. And if you have any questions at this point, we're happy to take them.
Yeah, board, any questions for our presenters? While people are looking at their maps, just to be clear, I heard you say it, but the changes that were made don't impact any of the sitting trustees and their ability to represent the districts they were elected in? Is that correct?
Correct. They retain the districts that they were
Okay.
in.
All right, thank you. Okay, board, any questions? Seeing none, this is listed as an action item.
I can go ahead and make the motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the resolution to change the boundaries of the Carson City School District trustee election areas in compliance with NRS 386.205.
Second.
Motion by trustee Varner, second by trustee Wilkie McCullough. Any board discussion?
Not discussion, but just to thank the redistricting team too. I know this is a huge undertaking, and Aubrey, for your service. We hear that you're not going to go much longer, so we wanted to thank you for everything you've done for the last 3 years, going on 4. So thank you for your service.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your patience. This really was a project that we had to kind of fumble through and work together as a team. Mr. Stokes and Renee, we all worked together, and so thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this action item? Karen?
I would have found it helpful to either have one of those packets or be able to see the maps, but we have no idea what you guys are discussing.
Are these maps available for public viewing? How can they view the maps if they wish to?
So we did have a public period where the proposed map was available online. And yes, the maps will be available online as soon as it's approved. We'll get the adopted map online. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public comment on this item? Miles?
And Karen, I have District 3, if you want that. I made different copies of District 3 because I'm termed out. So if you wanted.
So off of what you just said, it's, they will be available once they're approved. Isn't the whole reason to get the public involved is to show them before things get approved? So that way the public can have input. It actually, that's part of the open meeting law, under 240.12, I think 02, yeah, 240.010 or 020 or something. Yeah, so.
Well, you know what if it would be helpful, we're happy to call a recess so folks can take a look at these maps, and I'll keep public comment open while everybody gets a chance to look at the maps. I know it's not ideal if you didn't get to look at them before, but happy to do that. Aubrey?
If I could just make one clarification. So the public maps that we did have were for the Board of Supervisors wards, and I apologize for that confusion. As the Carson City is not the school district, we did not do the public portion of the school district maps. But we do have them available at our office. I'm not sure what the school district did, if there was any public outreach on that.
Okay.
Open back up for.
I'll tell you what, why don't we take a 5-minute recess?
Well,
And hold on, please, Miles. Let's take just a 5-minute recess. If anybody wants to take a look at the maps while we're here or have some discussion, happy to do that. And then we'll open it back up to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. So it's 7:28. We'll come back at 7:33. 8-second warning. We're going to get gear back up. I'll ask you to, and then we'll make a motion to continue. Okay, thanks, everybody. We're going to bring the board back in session. Given the fact that it was just brought to our attention that folks have not been able to view these maps, what I'm going to ask is if the trustee who made the motion is willing to call back his motion and maybe make a motion to continue this. It'll give the public a chance. We don't meet again until January, and that would give folks a chance to get more familiar with it, as it, 5 minutes to absorb it might not be enough time. So I checked with Aubrey, I checked with Superintendent Stokes. There doesn't seem to be an issue if we continue this, so that could be on the table as well. So we're still going to continue public comment, but I'm going to bring it back to the board to see if we want to stick with the motion or make a new motion, and then I'll reopen it up to comment, public comment.
Since I made the motion, I will withdraw it, and I could make a new motion if you so desire.
It's up to you. It's your motion.
I would move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees.
Does the withdrawal have to be seconded?
I don't know.
No.
Then I would just simply withdraw my motion.
But I don't think the changes are drastic enough to have to put this off another month. I mean, it would be different if we had these major shifts in lines, but we don't. I mean, I think there's only 2 districts that actually had even a tiny shift. And I don't think that it impacts as many people as that would recommend waiting another month to do this.
I understand where you're coming from, Stacy, but also it's not time sensitive where this would have to be approved tonight. And in order to give everyone the opportunity to view it, to post it on our website, we did receive the close-ups of the different boundaries just this evening. And so just to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to view it, I think that puts us in a safer position that all information is available.
I mean, and I could see that, but I also could see Stacy's point, because these maps were in the board packet, which is out for open meeting. So, I mean, I could go either way on this issue.
Yeah, and I think the point is we certainly complied with the open meeting law. I did hear from some folks, nobody in attendance here, that they weren't really aware of how things were changing. And so I could go either way also, but I have no problem tabling this for a month. I don't believe it's going to hurt anything. So with that, I'll leave it up to the board to make a motion.
Did Richard make a motion before we started talking, or he just
He just
Oh.
pulled his.
I'll move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees continue this matter till our next meeting so the public can have more input.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further board discussion? Seeing none, do we have any in-person public comment on this item? Rick, yes.
I just wanted to say that this map has been out for quite a while, and I've had a chance to review it for almost a month now, and I see no problem with it whatsoever. So again, there's been good transparency about this.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the input. Any additional in-person public comment? Seeing none, Renee, do we have any remote public comment?
Let me check, Mr. Cassiopo, one moment, please. No remote public comment.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to close public comment on this item. Board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 2 in opposition, Renee?
Yes,
Okay.
sir, Mr. Casiopo.
Thank you. Motion passes, and we'll bring it back to the next board meeting, Mr. Stokes. Okay, moving on to item 10, presentation and possible action on fiscal year 2021 annual independent audit and report on financial statements as required per NRS 354-624. This is for possible action. And I'm sorry, Aubrey, Miguel, and Tyler, thank you very much for the presentation. I apologize for not saying that first. AJ.
Thank you. Thank you, President Casiopo and trustees. This evening, I present to you the fiscal year 21 financial audit. Each year, NRS requires an annual external financial audit, reviews all the district's funds and accounting processes, does various tests of payroll, accounts payable, human resources and grants documents and their processes. And in front of you this evening, you have a beautiful 128 pages, I believe, of this information.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yes.
Thank you.
Joining us by phone this evening is our auditor, Dave Silva, who works for Silva, Sharani and Associates. And he will be walking you through that beautiful document. Dave, can you hear me?
I can. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Dave.
Sorry I'm not there with you tonight, and I really do appreciate the flexibility of being able to do this by phone tonight. So thank you for that. Those of you that know me know that I can blast through this pretty quickly. So that would be my intent, but certainly stop me at any point and ask any questions that you might have, and then we can also recap them at the end if you'd like. First off, the most important thing for you all would be that we are issuing a clean opinion that's sometimes referred to as an unmodified opinion, and that is the highest level of assurance that any CPA firm can issue on audited financial statements. That certainly is a positive thing. With respect to the financial statements themselves, I just have a couple of things that I'm obligated to highlight for you. And one of those is on page 50 under the caption of Note 2. And we're required to report any noted potential violations with statutes or regulations. And what we did note is an over expenditure from budget of about $37,000. That is in the scope of things, a very, very minor violation. And of course, I think most of you all realize that it is not at all unusual to have potential budget violations from time to time. So the requirement that exists for you all is within 60 days, so right about February 14th, you need to submit to Department of Taxation what's known as a corrective action plan. And basically that's just one paragraph or perhaps even less with a brief explanation as to steps that you have taken or will be taken to prevent over expenditures in the future. That's something that you can certainly handle, I think, fairly expeditiously. And I trust if you need our assistance, AJ will let us know. The only other thing that I wanted to report with respect to the financial statements really is we did have what's called a prior period adjustment. And we've talked about this before with respect to other issues, but this particular prior period adjustment is because of the implementation of one of the new accounting standards. And this accounting standard, which is known as GASB, remember, GASB is Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or I sometimes refer to it as the Accountants Employment Act. But the GASB 84 actually required that student activity funds be reported as special revenue funds going forward. And the mechanism in the accounting world for doing that is known as a prior period adjustment. So there's a little bit of a footnote on that, and that is on page 67. And just a little description as to why there is a prior period adjustment and what it is. And the prior period adjustment is related to the implementation of that standard. In other words, the first appearance of that standard for the district. So that does not mean that there will be a prior period adjustment going forward. It just basically puts the accounting into place for those student activity funds being reported as special revenue funds, which is required by GASB 84. The other thing that I do want to point out to you, and basically it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, is on page 2, and that is the second page of our opinion. And you guys who have been at this for a while, I suspect might agree with me that, you know, a lot of this stuff has gotten very long-winded, somewhat verbose, and certainly there's a pretty large quantity, as AJ suggested, to your financial statements. But at the very top of that page, this is the other place in the financial statements where we are required to report that a prior period adjustment was made. And the verbiage that we're required to use is really, I feel, kind of a misnomer. And the heading is emphasis of a matter / correction or - correction of an error. And it's not a correction of an error at all. And, you know, I don't know why they have us use that language. It's just that in the accounting world, the mechanism is a prior period adjustment, and more often than not, prior period adjustments occur because of a correction of an error. That's not the case here. It's the implementation of a new accounting pronouncement. And I think we talk about this nearly every year, and, you know, I never fail to be surprised by this myself, but GASB is pretty relentless in their pursuit of what they say, simpler accounting, more meaningful financial reporting, better transparency, and actually, you know, they really do hit the mark more often than not, I think. But on page, let's see here, beginning on page 66, going through page 67, is a pretty abbreviated laundry list, if you will, of new accounting pronouncements coming forth in the next year or two, for which your district, as well as many, many others, may have to implement. And I say it's an abbreviated list because I can guarantee you that when we meet again next year, we'll have another list with new items on it. GASB has just been very, very, very active. So I think it's just probably something that we ought to all be used to by now. But so that just gives you a little heads up as to what may be facing us in the future. With that, I'd like to ask if you guys have any questions on the financial statements or on the audit itself.
I have a question, but I'll open
Okay.
up to the board first. Mike?
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm curious of how we overexpended $36,000 in that grant.
Yeah, and that was my question. And I guess I'm confused by the language too, AJ, because it says, during the year, of an over expenditure due to undistributed
Right.
funds. So if we didn't just, maybe some clarification.
Sure. So, Mr. Silva, if I misspeak, please feel free to jump in. So, it's first to clarify, it's not that the grant itself was overexpended. So, every grant that we have, not one of them was overexpended in whole. Within the financial statements themselves, they're broken down in ways between, in kind of larger context, they're broken down between instruction and then support services that they otherwise would be spent on. And so this one grant in particular, when we set it up, most of it was set up for instruction and services costs. And when a decision was made to modify some of those expenditure items, the budget itself wasn't modified. It wasn't brought to you, and it wasn't modified within the accounting books. So it's more like we didn't spend it exactly as we had it in our books. We spent it as intended, ultimately, but that the books did not reflect that the way it was set up. So it's not that it was overexpended. The undistributed expenditures, those really encompass all of the support type items. So within functions, well, I won't say functions, but there's there's the instructional category, and then there's student support, staff support, administration, operations and management, central services, nutrition services. So all of the transportation, those are all considered support services for education. And so that's where the discrepancy lies, is that the amount that was budgeted to set up for the support services categories wasn't enough to cover the expenditures that were there. And it was in the amount of the $36,000.
Okay, thank you. And then, Mike, did you have a follow-up question, or are you good?
No, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how that happens. I mean, that's still a lot of money. It's not like we're talking about $1,000 here or there, and you're like, yeah, it's a little oversight. That's significant in my mind. Yeah.
Well, if I may interject for just a moment, in that local grants fund as a total, you actually spent less than what was budgeted for you to spend in total. And the issue here really is one of a classification of what the expenditures really are. That is, were they really in instructional expenditures or support services? So when the budget was created, I believe instructional regular programs was perhaps where the $37,000 was intended to come from. It actually came from support services. So it's really a classification issue, not one of overspending the fund, because that certainly did not happen.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Does that help at all?
Mike, does that help?
It does. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
To come in compliance, it sounds like it'd be an easy fix. What needs to occur?
I will come back to you with some type of plan, and it's usually, as Mr. Silva mentioned, it's usually a paragraph, just noting to Department of Taxation what the plan is so that this does not occur again. And then once the board approves that, we submit that. We have 60 days to submit it. If for some reason they wouldn't approve it, they would have to notify us within 90 days. And then we'd have to come back with some revised plan. But I don't know of any district that has had this happen that has been rejected in what they're, I mean, it's usually a pretty straightforward and simple correction.
And is that, I would agree with you, and I'm sure that's the case, but if they were to come back and say, you know, we don't agree with your plan, you know, we think you need to submit again, how far does this go? Let's just say they, you know, is there a monetary fine associated with it? I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen?
No, there is not. I think the worst thing that could happen is that they would come back to you questioning the plan that you're going to submit in February, but that would be very rare.
Okay.
This is in the scheme of things, and certainly in my experience of what I've seen, this is not an uncommon situation by any means.
Okay, no, I appreciate that input.
I would just say it's uncommon for us. This hasn't happened quite some.
No, I know. I mean, I think we do a fantastic job. I think under your leadership and the financial services, we do a very diligent job. So I trust that we'll get a remediation plan in place. Any additional board comments?
And I would absolutely agree with that statement.
Thank you, Dave.
You bet.
Sorry, AJ, it kind of got back and forth, but the floor is yours again.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Silva, was there anything else that you'd like to comment on this evening?
I don't believe so. I would just want to express our appreciation for the association that we have. We certainly appreciate your business, and I'd really like to wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. We want to wish you a Merry Christmas as well, and thank you for the same relationship. I think you've been very fair to us, and I think it's been very positive. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Mr. Cassiopa, I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any from the board? Do we have any more discussion or questions on the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We're going to move on to item 11. Discussion on possible action to change the current ground lease agreement for the greenhouse project to include the use of additional property located on the campus.
Joe, was that an
Oh,
action
I'm
item?
sorry. I got carried away with myself. Look at me. Sorry about that. We're going to go back to item 10, and that is for possible action.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees accept the Carson City Annual Financial Report and Audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, and instruct the Director of Fiscal Services to file the report as public record in accordance with NRS 354.624.
Motion, I think, Mike, that was you second. Motion by Mike Walker. Second by, geez, I'm destroying this topic. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item in person? Seeing none, Renee, do we have any public comments remote?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Thank you. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, let's try this again. Item 11.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, AJ.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Item 11, discussion and possible action to change the current ground lease agreement for the greenhouse project to include the use of additional property located on the campus at Carson High School to develop a composting and nursery production area for an extended term that expires December 31, 2027. This is again for possible action. With us, we have Karen Aboud and Superintendent Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As you know, we have had probably, I think this is actually our 11th year as a community partner with the Greenhouse Project. And it really has been a wonderful alignment of interests and educational opportunities for our students. And just under a year ago, Mrs. Aboud and John Reuter came to me, and they presented some ideas that would change the scope of how they did business. If you have lived in Carson City for any time, you have probably heard about some wonderful concert events, some chef's dinners activities, and other fundraising efforts that went entirely into the support of the Greenhouse Project. Karen and John's ideas, as we began talking, like I say, about last, February or so, was to figure out a way for the greenhouse to become self-sufficient without all of that extra fundraising. One thing you may not realize is that the rent money that is paid to the school district by the Greenhouse Project all goes 100% into the support of our ag programs. And so the school district is not in this partnership to make money off the Greenhouse Project. And the Greenhouse Project is very magnanimous in their mission to feed the underprivileged in Carson City and to also teach agricultural concepts to our students and to provide an introduction to agriculture at a very basic level for some of our students in the CLS program and other places. So the project is outlined really. If I could have you to turn to the document in your packet under Exhibit D. You'll see an aerial view of the Carson High School campus, and it is outlined in blue. And then in green is where the location of the Greenhouse Project currently exists. And then in yellow is a proposed piece of property that's currently vacant, except for storage. And that plot of ground has been identified as 1.7 acres of prospective property that could be used to coincide with the groundwork that is currently existing for the Greenhouse Project. You'll see that this site is just north of the solar array on the Carson High School campus. And then on the next page over is a closer perspective of the proposed plan. You'll see that there are items including a nursery production area and also a compost plant that has a very specific process. And that composting process is to take very specific organic materials that would be used as food for worms. And as the worms digest the compost, that material that's left over or the worm castings is then harvested and then sold to be soil remediating materials that's highly desirable for gardeners. Could also be used for the Greenhouse Project's own use or sold. But the idea is that the nursery production area would be used to grow native plants that might be specifically sold to local landscape contractors, to other wholesalers in the retailers, I should say, in the area, and also could be for sale to any citizens who might be desiring to use these plants. And so this combined effort really would replace some of that fundraising that the Greenhouse Project has had to do over time. So during that period of time when we first started talking, of course, this plan has been developed. There was also a special use permit that was required. and even a very in-depth study by the Environmental Protection Agency. And through all of that effort, as it has been approved, Mrs. Aboud and her group has worked with me and approved the document that is up for your consideration tonight, which is an extension of our original ground lease project with language to include the additional project as I have described it. You will notice that there was no increase in the cost for rent. Again, where that money goes 100% to our students, it did not make sense to add additional burden to the greenhouse project for this purpose, where truly the school is the beneficiary of the work that's being done by the group. As per the documents from the past, the ground leases from the past, the greenhouse project is completely responsible for the maintenance of the area. They're responsible for the cleaning of the area, for making sure that no hazardous wastes are used or stored there. They're responsible for all the utilities. And then, of course, if at any time the conditions of this lease changes, then there's an opportunity for the parties to sit down and liquidate those improvements that have been made on the property. So at this time, I'm going to turn a little time over to Mrs. Aboud to pick up anything that I may have not said well or left out.
Richard, you actually did an exceptional job. Thank you.
I might be looking for a job.
Good. We'll bring you on board. And I just want to add that part of the parameters of the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection permit that we were able to get also require regular record keeping and regular inspections and things of that nature. And so do the special use permit parameters. They're very stringent. We're working very closely with Mark Kornick on all that we are doing right now. And if this lease is approved, we have our vermicomposter ready to be ordered from Michigan Works, and it'll be here in February, March. So we're anxious. CTE is on board with this. This expands the educational offerings for the students as well, as you can see. So in the nature of agriculture and direction that it is going right now, I'm very excited about this. And actually, we're composting the school's food waste. And there was just on Good Morning America, probably 3 weeks ago, there's a place in the Midwest where they were making a big deal about these person that was orchestrating this. And I'm thinking, we're already doing this. So, you know, I'm pretty proud of our community and our school district. And so hopefully we can extend the lease and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, I just want to say, I remember when you started this whole venture about 2 years before I came on the school board, and it's been just fantastic. So thanks for for your leadership and everything you've done. I think it's a great, I mean, I can't say enough about it. Most recently, I had a chance to attend one of the fundraisers, and even that was just exceptional the way it was put on. And so just hats off to everybody involved. I did have one question. I noticed on the enlargement, we've got that runoff catchment area with the wetlands. Is that intended, does that have any offsite release, and is there any environmental monitoring that has to occur?
Mark Kornick can actually answer that question better because he met with all the necessary parties with regards to that. So I do know that it accommodates, and Mark Rotter also worked through on all the engineering on that part of that. And so it accommodates any runoff, and a lot of that is a floodway, as you know. And so it accommodates, whatever might be, so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, this is also an action item, and I won't move on to the next topic until we cover this one.
Okay. I move that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Laura.
I move that the Carson City School Board of Trustees approve the ground lease agreement for the greenhouse project to include the use of additional property located on the campus at Carson High School to develop a composting and nursery production area for an extended term that expires December 31st, 2027.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by trustee Contine. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none in person. Renee, do we have any remote?
No, Mr. Cassiopo?
Thank you. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to move on to, thank you, Merry Christmas. We're going to move on to item 12, discussion and possible action on a resolution to approve an augmented and amended budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 to include revisions for certified enrollment, audited fund balance, carry forward amounts, and recommended augmentations to specific funds. This is for possible action, and presenting is AJ Fueling.
Thank you. Thank you, President Cassiopo and trustees. So this evening, as is required by statute and as we do each year, before December 31st, we approve an amended budget. That amended budget is a document that takes what has previously been approved by the board as normally it's the original final budget that we approve in May. If you recall, because of the legislative session, we actually did an amended budget in June. So this technically is a second amended budget. But we update these enrollment numbers, we update with fund balances from the audit and other items as the year has gone on. There is some uniqueness to this in that there is an event that has happened that has never happened, as far as I'm aware of, for Carson City School District, and it's impactful in a good way for this year. So we'll get into that.
AJ, could I ask you, could you maybe hold the mic a little lower? It's a little bit muffled.
Okay.
Where you're holding, I think you're blocking something.
Is that better? Can you hear better? Kind of. This is Carson High mask. I'll just pull down. Okay. So, with this budget update, we'll look at the impact of average daily enrollment, a little bit of updated revenues. This is actually sort of significant. If you recall, there was 3 budget resolutions, three fund creation resolutions brought to you that was approved to create Fund 206, 207, 208. So that has kind of moved some things around within this, and I'll speak to that a bit. Revised staffing costs to include all column movements, any new staff, and any health benefit cost changes. Comparisons between the June amended and December 2nd amended budgets, in this case, is not very useful, and it goes back to those funds 206, 207, and 208. So I'll just kind of note that as we go through why that it won't look quite right. There are different transfers related to those funds as well, and overall general fund transfers are increased because of it, but it ends up not, in the end, not necessarily being significantly adverse in the process. And with all of the changes that happen, as far as an operational deficit, this budget is right around a $500,000 deficit. One of the items, too, that I'm going to speak to is within the audit document talking about the ending fund balance, general fund balance, I believe it was the last meeting or the meeting before, talking a little bit about this concern about funds being swept, right? And so our fund balance actually crept up about $95,000. So while in initial understanding of that was a concern, I don't know the answer for sure, but I don't believe that will get swept. And I'll kind of get into kind of what was said in the bill and some of the confusion and what we're still waiting for. So the kind of unique item that has happened has to do with enrollment. And it's not necessarily a great thing, but it actually, the way it happened has stabilized our revenues for the current year, so that is a good outcome. Within Senate Bill 458 in 2021, there was an adjustment to the hold harmless provision for ADE, or average daily enrollment. So historically, up until 2017, if a district had lower enrollment in one year as compared to the prior year, they could use the prior year's enrollment in determining what their funding level. In 2017, it was changed to the drop had to be by at least 5%, at least a 5% reduction in enrollment. But it was still a one-year look back. So what was unique with, what changed with this bill, and it's for this school year only, because it'll revert back, is that they are doing a 2-year look back. And I don't know if what happened behind the scenes with this, if it was kind of a reflection of concerns about the impact of COVID or whatever. But that 2-year look back then is looking back not only at the 2020-2021 school year, but also the 2019 and 2020 school year. And if you look back to the first quarter of the 2019-2020 school year, our enrollment for this year has now, with the funding information that NDE has, they send us their monthly update, the one we received in December, that has now, they're showing it as a decrease of 5.07%. So with that decrease, they then, instead of looking at what our average daily enrollment is this year, they are now looking back to that year, the 1920 school year. When we report to the Nevada Department of Education what our enrollment is, it's always done on a quarterly basis. So, and it's an average then of that quarter. So they're looking at the enrollment from every single day averaged across the quarter, and that's ultimately what we report to them. Looking at historical trends in our enrollment and what happens kind of generally over time each year, and looking back at that 1920 school year, it appears that this is likely to happen for every quarter this year. So being funded at the higher of the two enrollments, instead of the budget in June that we presented, and it at the time had about 7,600 students, that now adjusts up to 7,700 students approximately. So that, again, it helps us for stabilizing revenue for the current year. The downside is really looking then at next year. So this 2-year look back goes away, and there's no 3-year look back. So it's just a 1-year look. And so with that, if you look at what our ADE appears, or what it looks like for this year, that would be a reduction of about $3 million for us going into next year. So right now, the average daily enrollment, the number that NDE reported was 72, for weighted enrollment was 7286, I believe. Are there any questions on this part?
None so far.
Okay. I'm just gonna try a different. So in this slide, this is a much better mic. I should have changed. Sorry. I wish I would have. So here you have the comparison between the June budget and the December second amended budget that we're you have currently before you this evening. The average daily enrollment number has been increased to the 7703.8, which again was the first, this was the average daily enrollment from the 2019-2020 school year. So overall, that makes a difference. And this basic support is basically state aid, that what they call the adjusted base. So that has gone up by about $750,000. What is hard in making this comparison is that in the June budget, all of the revenues that we anticipated for funds 206, 207, and 208, those were all included in the general fund. Those have all now been removed. So looking at the difference between these two isn't quite as meaningful. It looks like a $1.7 million reduction, and technically it is, but those revenues being removed is, it just kind of skews what that result really is. On the transfer side, again, class size reduction is at this point inactive as a fund, so there is no transfer there. That has all been rolled into the general fund. Special education, there's a slight decrease in the transfer to that fund. One of note of under normal circumstances would be incredibly significant. The nutrition transfer is now 0. And that is very unique to this school year. So with students across the board eating for free and the federal reimbursement rates that are coming in because of that, it seems to be very unlikely that we would need to have a transfer go from the general fund to the nutrition fund. So that is nice to see. Right. We wanted you to go out on top. The summer school fund. So this one we don't talk about all that often, and it's historically been about every 5 years that we make a transfer into that fund. And it's just kind of a strange fund because sometimes we have grants that end up picking up some of the costs of summer school, and sometimes we don't. And one year we'll spend $70,000, one year we'll spend $5,000, one year we'll spend $0, and so it kind of just jumps around. But the fund balance that is in that fund is down to about $10,000. So it's time to put something back into that fund. So that'll get us through kind of the next several years of summer school spending. Clearly, we still have the ESSER grant programming, summer learning loss program. That's a part of it. So I don't know that this will necessarily be spent significantly this year, but if for some reason it needed to be, it would be available by making that transfer. And then each of the new funds, the PCFP, Pupil-Centered Funding Plan, so the English Learner Fund, the GATE Fund, and the At-Risk Fund, 206, 207, 208. So there are transfers going into each of those funds now. And part of that is there is so much revenue that goes in. At this point, I don't know if those funds are not spent. They're technically not a grant, like a reimbursable grant. We are receiving this money up front. And so what I don't know is if we don't spend all of that money, so if that fund effectively would end with a fund balance, what happens? Because I think the state would end up sweeping that. So by moving all of our English learner expenditures over, any GATE expenditures we have over, what I think by state definition would qualify for at risk, and I think we're still going to be getting kind of more guidance and information over time with this. The costs in those funds exceed the amount of revenue in there, and so that's why you're having the transfer from the general fund. If those expenditures weren't in that fund, they would be in the general fund. So it almost doesn't matter actually where they end up. The transfer kind of washes everything out in the end. So again, I don't know how, this isn't the most useful comparison because of those three funds and moving expenditures over. So like here, it looks like staffing costs were reduced significantly, and that ultimately is in large part because of much of the staffing costs moving to funds 206, 207, and 208. There is an increase in non-staffing costs, and I'll bring up what those are at this point. And then the transfers, again, there's an increase because of some of the new funds. So then overall, looking at these, again, with the June budget on a structural operating basis, there was no deficit. With what we have here, $503,000. Again, I don't in any way expect that we will hit that mark. It will be less than that by definition, because it has to be. But it kind of allows some flexibility, at least with trying to make sure that if the definition of the fund balance that they decide to sweep is something completely out of what we would expect, at least hopefully where we end up will kind of protect us from losing some of those funds. In kind of off this, but it would be knowing that there's kind of these years coming ahead which are going to be a little more difficult. You would think that, well, it'd be great to be able to save up some money in that fund balance like the district did back in 2008, 2009 to ward off kind of some of the troubles in those future years. Yet you can't do that exactly, we think. And so it's really frustrating not knowing exactly what that is, and it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with trying to make some of that work. There's just too many angles on this right now, which is a little disconcerting sometimes. So when you add in then the contingency and carry forward amounts, again, contingency is an amount of money set aside by the board. There is an opportunity to expend that if necessary, but it requires your authorization to spend those funds. So they cannot be spent unless I would specifically come back to you to ask to spend that money. The carry forward amounts, that's the cumulative kind of unspent budget funds over years from various schools and departments that they have in reserve. So the intent of that, when that became a part of district practice, I think about 15 years ago, the idea was to avoid kind of that use it or lose it mentality. So sites and departments are able to carry some funds if they don't spend them. So in the resolution itself, the deficit that is shown is this $2,336,262 in red. So to talk just a little bit about the sweep concern with fund balance, and what's really frustrating, especially in these times, is the issues we're having with supply chain and getting things in on time. There was about $120,000 of items ordered by the operations department back in February of last year that we didn't receive by June 30th. And so had we received those items that were ordered well ahead of time, we wouldn't have increased our fund balance. The fund balance actually would have decreased slightly. And so there's concern on my side, and I've already spoken with executive team and principals about this, about that timing becoming an issue again. And so looking at cutting off, normally we allow purchasing kind of to go into April, but cutting that off much earlier simply because we don't know what we're going to receive. And if you're trying to project year end what your budget is going to ultimately look like, having that kind of uncertainty really throws everything off. So that's something that we'll be looking at some more and probably implementing soon. So what's really important about this, and the language isn't the most user-friendly, but the original language of SB 543 spoke to a sweep of actual ending fund balance. And I remember Assemblywoman Maggie Carlton in this last session made a really big deal about switching it to budgeted. And and no one really understood why or what that meant. And to some extent, I think that's still the case, where it's the budgeted ending fund balance in excess of 16.6%, or in our case, it's not that it's whatever is over 16.6 would get swept. It's that we're at, as of fiscal year 20, we ended at 20.3%. And so it's not that that would get swept, but we just couldn't have it increase. Well, our actual fund balance this year, based on the audit, is now 20.8% because of that little increase, okay? However, that is our actual fund balance, and that is not what this is talking about. What is, and to kind of just give you an idea, so these are the last, on the right, the numbers that generally we talk about and are reported are actual fund balance. So these have been the actual fund balances the last 3 years, in 19, 20, and 21. I think that if you have the budget document in front of you, what makes the most sense to me, and clearly whatever makes the most sense to me is what the state is going to do, is look at page 2 of the budget document that you have. And this sheet has not changed, I believe, for about 2 decades. And what it does is kind of give a summary of, here's your starting fund balance. Here's how much revenue we think we're going to get. Here are expenditures in different categories. And then a little more than halfway down, there's a bolded percentage. That is our budgeted ending fund balance in this document. It has always existed in this document as far as I know. And so it would make great sense to me that since this is a known and understood and standardized number, that this would be the reference point. I'm concerned because there's still conversations going on at the state level about what budgeted ending fund balance is really going to mean for them. I don't know if they're going to pull other funds into it in the calculations. The Commission on School Funding at the last meeting has requested this be brought up as an item at our next meeting in January, because we're all still waiting, trying to find out what this means. So, and so I have those historical budgeted ending fund balances up there, and as you can see, we're actually below the 16.6 in every year. So clearly, again, we never spend absolutely to the level that's budgeted, and that's not the goal. So that always comes back in a little bit lower. And truly that budgeted amount also always considers contingency, and it always considers the carry forward amounts. So that also kind of drops that percentage down, because it's assuming that those are going to be spent at 100%, which is never the case. Are there any questions about any of this? I could call Governor Sisolak and see if he has an answer. So some one-time expenditures added in, and by one-time, clearly nothing is really truly a one-time expenditure, but ones that are expected to last for a long time and don't need annual replacement. So we talked about buses, and truly looking at that revenue number for next year, really kind of put this front and center in considering what could be added into the budget. So adding in $500,000 for buses, which would purchase about 4 buses for the school district. Increasing expenditures for instructional equipment and supplies. Trying to make sure I feel like over the last number of years, the schools have done a really good job. The principals have done a fantastic job with getting their schools ready. I feel like I've been this rain cloud for so long with kind of impending doom with some of this. And so trying to upgrade as much as they can along the way, and just have places ready for maybe a couple rough years that we can weather. Some athletic equipment and facilities, minor facilities work that I've spoken with the athletic director, Blair Roman, and he's put together a list of items that we could do just to upgrade some of the pieces around Carson High, some safety upgrades. That number is likely for camera upgrades, but also finishing the access panel system. That was the other side of it. And then again, I noted that there's these purchases or orders from fiscal year 21 that were not received until after into this new fiscal year. So the money wasn't spent then in 21, but then it carried over in fund balance and was ultimately spent by those departments this year. So it's just kind of reimbursing them from what they couldn't actually pay for last year.
AJ, and a thought is just with the supply issues happening nationally, that could become an even bigger problem next year.
So that is an excellent point, and thank you for bringing that up because I meant to kind of talk about that. So going back to the fund balance sweep piece, I think the reason that it was changed from actual to budgeted is because while actual is nice and actual, the budgeted is about intent, right? And if the district intent is laid out in your budget document of how you plan to spend your resources, and you know it's one thing if you're showing that, look, we want our fund balance to go from 20% to 30% next year. Clearly your intent is to pad that for whatever reason. If you think it's a good reason, you're adding to your fund balance. And that is not the intent within these budgets. But I'm glad it's not actual for that very reason, because I don't see this part getting any better anytime soon. And so again, we're actively going to be trying to put these orders in earlier this year so it's not as much of a problem. I am absolutely certain there's still going to be issues with some of these items. So thank you for bringing that up, Trustee Walker. Other funds of note, again, I already mentioned 206, 207, 208, and in the bond fund that has been updated with the revenues from the October bond sale, which will help fund Eagle Valley and the balance of Eagle Valley and some other things. So that is all I have this evening. And I will certainly update the board. I think the next commission meeting is the 21st. So it's supposed to be on the agenda to get a report, at least from the Department of Education and or some reps from LCB or the Governor's Finance Office if they are still discussing and trying to figure out how to get this this finalized so we can at least move on and know what we're dealing with. But I will certainly update the board as soon as I know more.
Okay. Well, thank you, AJ. It's interesting. I appreciate your input. I mean, you are an interesting person, but what you're going through to figure all this out, I'm surprised you don't invest, or maybe you do, in Tylenol or something.
It's all Bitcoin.
Yeah, there you
at
go.
this point. It's safe. I'm just kidding. I shouldn't say that publicly. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, board, do we have any questions for AJ? Richard?
Yeah, I may be confused, though, and I apologize. Our ending fund balance percentage for fiscal year 20 was 20.3%. And then for fiscal year 21, it's going to be 20.8% as it stands now. Does that mean that that 0.5% could be swept unless we spend it down?
Well, I believe the answer is no. So that is our actual fund balance. And you have to remember too, fund balance, the other thing that complicates as you're trying to kind of monitor the budget going through the year, not only is there the amount that is, in this case, the addition to fund balance, but you also have the denominator of the total expenditures in that equation. The ending fund balance is your numerator, total expenditures is your denominator. Well, our total expenditures last year fell actually from the prior year. So since the denominator actually got smaller, it inflated the percentage as well. So you're trying to manage both of those through this. So I do not believe it will get swept. I believe that what is going to come into question to potentially be swept is if districts in their budgets or in our budget, if it looked like there was intent to add to our fund balance, that is where the state would say no. So if it looked like we were trying to add to our fund balance by 1%, and that 1% was equivalent to $1 million, they would take $1 million from us. I don't know exactly how it would happen. I don't know what exactly it looks like. But I don't believe that's the outcome. Unfortunately, we just don't have a really, it makes me feel better that they crossed out actual. So I feel safe in that regard. I don't feel safe in that I don't really know what they are going to say budgeted means. And it's frustrating because it's going to be this ex post facto decision. And then they're going to be looking back at the end of last year and you can't do anything at that point. So, we'll see.
I just got to follow up. The 20.8 versus the 16.6, which is in statute, are we grandfathered into that 20.8? Is that for the future forever, or do we at some point have to revert back to the 16.6?
So technically it could go on for forever as far as I understand. I think the reality is it would be about impossible. Just the nature of, some of the things that Trustee Walker was talking about and just the uncertainty of what comes in and when. I don't, at some point it would go down. So, but hopefully, again, kind of where we are positioned, I'm hoping it's about as good as it can be, along with the ESSER funds that we have available to get us through these next couple of years as well as we can.
To me, it's good news that we can keep that 20.8 versus the 16.6.
Any other board questions? Okay, seeing none. AJ, thanks again. I appreciate that. This is, again, for possible action.
I can make the motion. If I get the right one here. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the augmented and amended budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 by approving the resolution and instructing the Director of Fiscal Services to file the documents as necessary to comply with NRS Chapter 354.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Varner, second by Trustee Walker. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any in-person public comment on this item? Seeing none, Renee, any remote public comment on this item?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Thank you. Board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thanks, AJ. Item 13, discussion and possible action on the superintendent's annual evaluation for the 2021 calendar year. This is for possible action, and I will get us started on this. As everybody knows, this is the format we've adopted. We've had it for a few years. We always want to review it, make sure it is meeting our needs. But for the purpose of Superintendent Stokes and this evaluation, we felt that what we have now is what we want to go with. And how this worked was each trustee spent time independently reviewing each of these 11 categories and providing their own independent evaluation of how they felt Superintendent Stokes has done. And then what we do is we get each trustee's point rating in, their vote, if you will, add them all up, add up the scores, and rate Mr. Stokes on it. It's a number scale, basically 0 to 4, 0 being unsatisfactory, 1 being needs to improve, 2 being satisfactory, 3 being very satisfactory, 4 being superior. So we add all this up, and that's how we base the rating. And I guess I'll skip to the punchline, and then I'll go back through each category. But Mr. Stokes, there it is. Overall rating of the average was 35.56, which puts him in the very satisfactory range. That range is from a score of 29 to a score of 37. Again, there were 11 categories that Mr. Stokes was evaluated on: leadership and district culture, employer superintendent relations, community relations and communication, organizational management, educational program / curriculum planning and development. Sorry, fingers are slipping here. Instructional leadership, professional and leadership development, human resources management, staff and personnel relations, values and ethics leadership. This was going so smooth when I practiced it. Financial management and business matters, management and implementation of strategic plan, and the last one, I believe is the last one, yes, student achievement. I wasn't planning on going through all of these individually. This is all public record, and the board has all this information, but I'll bring it to the board. Does the board have any questions on the results of the evaluation or anything related to this matter? Laurel?
Just one correction, because my handwriting probably wasn't able to be read by Renee. Under student achievement, in my comment, it was every effort to bring rather than to bridge.
And also in that same vein, which I've already talked to Renee, and she's corrected on the main one that's going out to everybody, but under my comments there, I said during this next week, I would like to see him develop goals. He's assured me that he can't do it in a week. I actually meant next year, and that has been changed.
Good, because I was concerned we were going to have a special session this evening. No, we did talk about that as well. Thank you, Richard, and Laurel, thanks for the clarification. The one thing I'll note on student achievement, nothing with the comments, but if you read the bullet point for student achievement, it says annually set and communicate to the board SMART goals focused on improving student achievement as measured by graduation rates, SBAC, MAP, ACT, and EOC exams. We have not adopted SMART goals, so the way this question was worded, it kind of, to some degree, sets the person we're evaluating up for potential failure. So I just wanted to bring to the attention that some of you, at least in your comments when you made your, casted your vote, if you will, mentioned that, and I think that was an important note, so thanks for that.
And we may want to update it because haven't end-of-course exams now been combined with basically the class grades that the students receive?
Yeah, and I think what we'll do for future topics or at a later meeting is we'll get into that in a reevaluation, but certainly. So anyway, do we have any other board discussion on this? Mike?
And I think, Mr. Stokes is to be commended on a job well done. I think as a board, we have a little bit of work to do because reading through the comments, I think it's kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde scenario where we're saying we have to limit the initiatives and take things off teacher and administrator plates. But then if we're scoring our superintendent a 1 for MAP testing, the more we push the superintendent for standardized test results, the more that's going to result in pressure being put on the teachers and the principals. And so I think that, Mr. Stokes obviously kind of understands how we work and he's navigated our system very well. But as we're getting ready to bring a new person in, I think we need to have a really clear vision and understand when we push, it's going to have a result on the school district.
Right, and I think that's a good point. And, yeah, I think, as we look at this, and evaluate how we set up this evaluation, that's a good point to have, because I think there's ways to do that, but, we can discuss that at a later date. Thank you, Mike. Any other board comments?
Just a comment for the record, Mr. Stokes, this will be our last evaluation of you, and I just want to say how grateful I am for the service and the commitment that you have made to our district, and I think that you leave a tremendous legacy and really big shoes to follow. Our relationship with our employee groups is one of the best in the state, and I think that has to do a lot with your efforts. I think our community partnerships are outstanding. The Greenhouse Project is another example of things where our district has been far ahead of other things. I came on this board right after the first strategic plan was adopted, and one of the main goals was to have one-to-one mobile devices. And making that a reality enabled our students to have the opportunity to be successful during this remote schooling and all of that. So I just want to thank you and commend you for leading our district in such a sound and good direction for so many years.
Yeah, and I think I want to add to that, Richard. It's been a pleasure serving with you, and fortunately, we still have 6 more months with you. Wish we had more, but I understand everything has to come to an end. But I do think, I tend to really look at the scores, the staff morale and all those things. And while sometimes, to Mike's point, to Trustee Walker's point, one kind of creates a domino effect on other things. I really do think, Mr. Stokes, you've done a tremendous job as superintendent. Again, all 3 of my kids went through this district, and you were the superintendent for the majority of their K-12 career. And I think they got an exceptional education. And I think all kids willing to, for the most part, willing to give it what they have are going to get a good education. And I think you and your executive staff and the way you run the district, people can always say what they will, and there's always room for improvement, but I do think you've done an exceptional job. So thank you for your leadership.
I think we also got to add the difficult 2 years we've had with all the pandemic. And I think your leadership kept the kids in seat the best we could. And it's been a difficult job, and I know that you've been stressed out about it a lot, as we have. But I think we really got to mention that difficult period of time that you've served the district very well. Thank you.
And please feel free to comment, but also this is an action item. Lupe, did you have a comment?
Yes, I also want to express my appreciation for everything you do for all our families in our community. And I remember the first time that I expressed interest in participating in any meetings within the school district. You were always very welcoming and very receptive to any ideas for ways that the district would improve on certain things. And so I just want to say thank you so much for opening the doors to for me to get involved within the school district. I'm very, very appreciative, and I'm very happy to be part of it. And we wish you the very best. And we still have a few months to work with you, so I know that we will still be bugging you.
Okay, is anyone ready to make a motion?
So I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees deem the overall rating of Mr. Richard Stokes, Superintendent of the Carson City School District, to be very satisfactory for the 2021 calendar year.
Okay, motion by Trustee Walker, second by Trustee Crossman. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any in-person public comment? Seeing none, any remote public comment, Renee?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Okay, thank you. Board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Again, Richard, thank you very much. Do you have any, please, comments?
First, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, trustees, for your confidence and for your very generous vote of confidence. I do appreciate that, and also the feedback. If you don't mind, I have prepared a letter. I had intended to wait until tonight to do this, even though I've made my intentions about retiring earlier, so that we would certainly have enough time to take the steps to figure out a way to make a replacement. But if you would allow me to read this, I would appreciate it. December 14th, 2021, official notice of retirement. Dear President Cassioppo and trustees, for the past 21 years, it has been my honor to have served the Carson City School District. In 2001, I was hired as the Associate Superintendent of Human Resources and then became the superintendent in 2008. During this time, I've met and worked with many talented and caring staff members, trustees, students, citizens, and community partners who have enriched and blessed my career and life. I feel fortunate to have signed the high school diplomas of 14 classes of graduating seniors in our district. Among these distinguished graduates are my own 4 children, who have benefited greatly from the traditions, influences, and values that have been taught in our school district. Our teachers and support staff have not only influenced my children for good, but indeed all of the students who have attended our schools. Please accept my sincere thanks to each of you and to all former trustees who had the confidence to hire and sustain me during the 14 years I've served as your superintendent. Not only do I have great respect for you as individuals, but I also appreciate and value your service and dedication to the staff, students, and families of our district. I consider you my colleagues and my friends, and I wish you well as you continue your important work in school-related endeavors. I'm also very grateful for each member of my immediate leadership team and cabinet. These incredibly intelligent, dedicated, and productive individuals are the most talented group of educators I've ever known. It takes vast knowledge, understanding, and finesse to efficiently and professionally use and direct the district's resources, and one person cannot possibly manage it alone. I know this talented group of leaders and experts will continue to produce the very finest outcomes with the highest quality of service for the students in our district. I am very grateful for their support, commitment, professionalism, and friendship. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and thank Mrs. Renee Cortez for keeping me pointed in the right direction. Renee is an unsung hero in our district who manages every imaginable detail for nearly every aspect of the superintendent and trustees, and she has done it all from behind the scenes. Her knowledge, competence, and care is at the very heart of our organization, and I can't thank her enough for her encouragement and dedication. In closing, I would like to recognize my children and my wife for their unfailing confidence and fierce loyalty to me and my work as a district superintendent. They often sacrificed their own activities, time, and sometimes interests so I could meet my professional activities and obligations. My wife especially has always been one to advise, reassure, and defend my actions and efforts, and I love her for her confidence in me and her devotion to our family. There is no doubt that Carson City is indelibly ingrained in my soul. Now, as I prepare to leave my professional family of 21 years, I hope that some of my soul is also ingrained in the district. I will forever be grateful for the opportunity to be part of this wonderful organization and community. My final day of work will be June 30th, 2022. Sincerely, Richard Stokes, Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We accept your resignation. And again, wish, it's a note of retirement, it is.
Thank
You have to, when you retire, you have to resign, but yeah, we do, and we wish you, we know you're not leaving yet, but we certainly we'll say this over and over again, wish you and your family all the best in retirement. I agree with you. It really takes a family to do what you and others like you do. And so my hat's off to them as much as my hat is off to you. So again, thank you for your leadership. We are going to move on to item 14, approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this? Seeing none, Renee, any remote public comment on this?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 15, informational items for discussion only. No action will be taken. Any questions from the board on the informational items? Seeing none, requests for item 16, requests for future agenda topics. Seeing none, I would just say I don't have a set time for it yet, but I'd like to just put on record that we do want to schedule some time at some point for the potential revisions to the superintendent evaluation form. And I know I believe we have to do that in public forum. And so we'll coordinate with our legal counsel on how to do that. But I just want to kind of bring that up so I don't forget it. Don, did you have something?
Yeah, did we vote for the consent agenda?
We did, didn't we?
Did we miss that? I think I voted.
I thought I called the vote. Renee, did we call a vote? Yeah,
Yeah, there was no public comment, Mr. Cassiopo.
did we not do public? Oh, I thought I did. I apologize. I'm batting 1,000 tonight. So item 14, we have approval of the consent agenda. We did have a motion and a second. I called for additional board comment. Do we have any public comment on item 14, the consent agenda? Seeing none, did we have any remote public comment, Renee?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Thank you. Do I have to call for the vote again, or? Okay. So back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. I apologize. I could have sworn we did it. Let's see, we did item 15 for informational items, requests for future agenda topics. Any additional requests for future agenda topics? Seeing none by the board, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.